3, 2, 1, start. It has been strenuously argued on behalf of Upendra that the chairman of the selection committee chose to act in his own discretion. Stop. In support of such contention, reliance has been placed upon the minutes of the meeting dated 20th May, 2022. Stop. It is well settled that the records need to be considered together and not in isolation. Stop. A particular line oblique clause cannot be taken up and highlighted. Stop. The contents of the minutes of the meeting dated 20th May, 2022, the memo dated 10 June, 2022, and the fact that none of the members of the search committee protested against participation of the 20 candidates over and above the candidates shortlisted by the scrutiny committee rule out the finding that such decision was an act of individual discretion of the chairman of the search committee. Stop para. It is well settled that even though the power granted to the executive authority is not totally immune from judicial review, but the court makes an almost extreme presumption in favor of bona fide exercise of such power. Stop. Two indispensable riders for scrutinizing the validity of a recruitment process are to prevent miscarriage of justice and to secure fair play in action. Stop. In the absence of any specific or categorical findings supported by any concrete and relevant material, that widespread infirmities of an all-pervasive nature which could be really said to have undermined the very process itself in its entirety or as a whole, and in the absence of any allegation that fraud, misrepresentation or malpractice had been committed, there was hardly any justification in law to interfere with the selection process. Stop para. A composite perusal of the Memorandum of Association and the rules and regulations of EJCC would reveal that the executive board, comprising of high government officers, had been conferred the jurisdiction towards constitution of search committee and other committees, and that the appointment of director is subject to the approval of the concerned ministry. Stop. Such approval is not under challenge. Stop. In the said conspectus, and more so when the selection process stood intervened by the pandemic, we are unable to hold that the rules of the game had been altered by the authorities after the process of selection had commenced. Stop para. Upon arriving at a categoric finding that the eligibility criteria or the criteria for selection had not been changed after the process of selection had commenced, court observed that the procedure for selection had been altered by one committee of the Honorable Governor by taking upon themselves the duties and functions of another committee. Stop. The contents of the memo dated 12 May 2021, by which the constitution of the scrutiny committee was approved, clearly reveal that the said scrutiny committee was constituted to examine the applications and to shortlist the eligible candidate, with a rider that thereafter further process for filling up the post of director will be initiated. Stop. The document annexed at page 118 of the paper book also reveals that the search committee was constituted to take further steps towards filling up the post of director after shortlisting of candidates. Stop. It thus does not establish that the search committee was not conferred with any jurisdiction to consult the records for ascertaining as to whether any eligible candidate had been left out from the zone of consideration, more so when the annexure to the minutes of the scrutiny committee dated 13th May 2022 does not reveal that the riders towards eminence and requisite experience in the field of art and culture of the candidates were taken into consideration. Stop. It is thus not a case that a prescription existing at the time of the initiation of the selection process was amended and dropped after the process of selection had commenced. Stop. Erroneously proceeding on the basis that the chairman of the selection committee had acted on his individual discretion, the learned judge proceeded to review the decision taken by the expert body to call Assis for the interview. Failing to appreciate, the court should be slow to interfere with the decision of any expert body. Stop. The view of the expert should not be disturbed unless it is perverse or not based on evidence. Stop. For the reasons discussed about, the learned single judge ought not to have caused and the subsequent list of 20 candidates, the letter of recommendation dated 26 May 2022 and the letter of appointment of Assis dated 5th July 2022, and accordingly the said directions are set aside and Upendra's writ petition is dismissed. Stop. In view thereof, the direction to consider the suitable candidate from the panel recommended by the Joint Secretary, ZCC for appointment to the post of director, ZCC is also not sustainable and is set aside. Stop para. With the above observations and directions, the appeals being MAT 793 of 2023, MAT 796 of 2023 and MAT 845 of 2023 along with the connected applications are disposed of. Stop para. The learned single judge rightly arrived at a finding that Sama, being overaged, was ineligible to challenge the appointment of Ashish. Stop. As there was no illegality in calling 20 more candidates for the interview over and above the shortlisted candidates by the scrutiny committee, we do not find any reason to interfere with the direction towards dismissal of Sama's writ petition. Stop. The appeal being MAT 838 of 2023 along with connected application preferred by Sama are accordingly dismissed. Stop. There shall however be no order as to cost. Stop. Urgent photostat certified copy of this judgment applied for be given to the parties as expeditiously as possible upon compliance with the necessary formalities in this regard. Stop.